So I just got done watching Andor Season 2 Episode 4 titled Ever Been To Ghorman? Which is a great title, let's be honest, but honestly they could have just reused the title from the first episode of this season, because here we actually open with one of my all-time personal favourite tropes, the surprise time jump. Yes, one whole year has passed since the last episode, since Brazo's death and Mon Mothma's daughter's wedding and Bix and Cassian's escape, which is obviously kind of a ballsy move from the writers, because every time you do a time jump, you risk losing a bit of emotional momentum. Think about it, you're cutting away from the aftermath of what just happened, and asking the audience to catch up, even though everything's now shifted. People have changed, relationships have evolved off screen. The weight of what we saw in episode 3 is still there, of course, but it's quieter now, buried deeper. And sure, the show does take a bit of time to catch us up, but never in a way that I found to be expositional. It sort of just drops us back into the world and lets us figure it out for ourselves. And that is something I have always loved about Andor, the way it trusts the audience to keep up. This is not a show which spoon feeds you context. Like, more often than not, you do not have the full picture of what exactly is happening. You're often thrown into scenes mid-movement and left to piece it all together. And again, it's just such mature writing and so refreshing for a Star Wars show. What can I say? It's just nice as an audience member to feel respected and trusted to follow what's happening. Anyway, speaking of the 1 year time jump, things have clearly intensified. I mean, it makes sense, right? We're now, only 3 years out from the Battle of Yavin? And remember, that wasn't just a single event. That was mid-galactic civil war, full rebellion, open conflict. So of course the cracks are starting to show. The pressure's building, everyone's getting a little more desperate, a little more reckless. You can feel it in the way people talk and move. There's an urgency now that wasn't there before. We see this in the scene between Luthen and his Imperial mole, Lonnie, who, I'm worried about this season, I'm not gonna lie. But anyway, it's their first contact in months, and Luthen makes it clear that that's not acceptable anymore. You know, he tells Lonnie he can't wait another 3 months for an update. Lonnie pushes back, saying Luthen used to tell him to wait, and Luthen simply replies, "Those days are gone." It's a brief exchange, but it captures exactly where we are in the timeline. The rebellion isn't brewing anymore. It's boiling. Luthen doesn't have time to play the long game, and neither does anyone else. The days of patience are over, and the rest of this episode quietly shows us what that shift looks like. Cassian and Bix, who are now together, I guess, currently live in some sort of safe house on Coruscant. It's a quiet, tense kind of domesticity. Not quite peace, but a pause. It almost reminded me of Blade Runner in the way it was shot, you know, the cold neon, the murky skyline. Sure, there's intimacy here, but there's also isolation. It's like they're borrowing a life, living inside someone else's apartment, pretending this is what normal could look like, shopping, cooking, sleeping, while knowing that it's all temporary. Bix is still visibly haunted by all the terrible things that have happened to her. Cassian, meanwhile, is hyper-vigilant and protective. He watches her closely but gently. They're clearly in a relationship now, not just allies, but something more intimate. But even here, in this moment of relative calm, the war intrudes. We learn that on a recent mission, Cassian killed a man who had seen Bix's face. A cold, tactical move that says as much about his mindset as it does about his fear of losing her. I think it's safe to say that the relationship between these two people is complex. There's love there, clearly, but also guilt, fear, and the looming shadow of the rebellion that never really lets them breathe. Meanwhile, everyone's favourite sexually repressed wannabe fascist Boy Scout has been relocated to Ghorman, the spider planet Krennic spoke about a few episodes earlier, which Cyril insists is a promotion, though it very much looks like exile. The guy is running a Bureau of Standards field office, living alone and once again on video calls with his mum, who is just as hilarious as ever. Now fully locked into Imperial news propaganda, ranting about how disrespectful the Ghormans are to Emperor Palpatine, which, again, is just such brilliant world building. Like, I'm never gonna get over how well this show grounds the most ridiculous parts of Star Wars. The Emperor is literally a shriveled old man in a cloak who shoots lightning from his fingers, and yet here, he's treated like a real political figure that people obsess over on state news. That obsession bleeds into everything, especially the Empire's propaganda machine. We've already seen how they're painting the Ghormans as arrogant and and disruptive, and the visual language here makes the parallel even clearer. The protesters wear caps that vaguely resemble berets, they hand out flyers in public squares, and they speak in a language that sounds unmistakably French. It's all very La Resistance. And of course, the way the Empire frames them, classic Nazi-style PR. Undermine the group you're about to crush, so when it happens, no one questions it. But the real development here is what Cyril's doing outside those calls, because for a while, you're almost fooled into thinking he might be softening. He watches the protests, he walks through the crowds, he almost seems moved. But then we learn the truth, that he's feeding everything back to Dedra, who... Is he still with her? Honestly, I give up trying to figure out these two crazy kids. Anyway, it's all part of some off-the-books operation she's quietly running behind the Empire's back, and Cyril is her way in. He's not drifting towards rebellion, he's positioning himself inside of it. Much like Javert in Les Mis. Wow, this really is a French episode, isn't it? Ghorman isn't just another agitated planet, it's symbolically charged, resource-rich, and already under scrutiny. And with tensions rising, it's clear the Empire is watching closely, maybe even waiting for an excuse. Whether this all leads to a crackdown, a setup, or something else entirely, well, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I have no idea what's gonna happen, really. We also briefly check in with Mon Mothma, still trying, bless her, to pass legislation protecting Ghorman inside a collapsing system. She has this one great line, are we finding criminals or making them? And honestly, that kind of says it all. And we also get this short but intriguing scene where Wilman shows up on Dakar, a planet that already looks like a rough prototype for a rebel base, complete with X-Wings and everything like that. He's there to deliver a Rhydonium-powered device and quickly train one of Saw Gerrera's guys on how not to blow himself up. It's a quick handoff, but it tells us where Wilman's ended up. Still fighting, still alone, and now moving dangerous cargo for one of the most unstable factions in the rebellion. Anyway, we end the episode with Cassian getting the call from Luthen. He's being sent to Ghorman, not to act, just to assess. But let's face it, we know how these things usually go. His goodbye with Bix is quiet, wordless, and strangely quite powerful. I don't know, man, it's just a touch of hands, a long pause, just two people who know they might never see each other again. But it hits hard, and then Cassian is gone. Bix stays behind in the apartment, alone, clearly about to take something to dull whatever's creeping back in. And man, watching this show is kind of like watching Better Call Saul. It gives you characters whose fates you don't know, who don't appear in any of the other material surrounding the universe, and then makes you care about them deeply. Because let's be real, we know where Cassian ends up. We know Mon Mothma lives. But what about Bix? What about Dedra and Cyril and Wilman and all the others? I have no idea, and that makes things pretty tense. Especially when characters start getting addicted to death sticks or whatever. Anyway, that's gonna be it. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.